Most commercial people don't actually understand the program, and that's exactly why delay claims fall apart. I was talking recently to a commercial manager about his project. He was stressed out. The job was delayed. He had a growing list of compensation events that hadn't been agreed. They were potentially liable for months of liquidated damages. And commercially, he didn't feel in control. And that's the key point. He wasn't in control. But why was this? It was because someone else was doing the planning. It was all on P6, and he didn't really understand P6. He didn't understand the monthly programs that were going in. Every month he was given a 50-page PDF, but it was difficult to follow. He couldn't work out how it all linked together. And he didn't understand the delay programs that he was relying on to get the extensions of time he needed. He didn't know what was on the critical path at any given moment. He was just hoping that the planner would be able to work it out and that each of the compensation events would add up to give him the extension of time he needed. And this is a really common problem. The big issue on most projects is being late. Design is late, information is late, access is late. That's not unusual. It's almost expected. The project I spoke about earlier was delayed by around 18 months. There were very few other change events. About 90% of the change account was program delay. And yet the program was treated as something separate from commercial. On a lot of projects, commercial teams focus on everything except the program. Getting paid, notifying compensation events, agreeing final accounts. But the thing that can actually make the difference between making and losing money can be the program. And this belongs to someone else. And part of the problem is the way these monthly programs are managed. They've turned into a form of micromanagement, not a tool to manage the works. In reality, these P6 programs are huge. They detail every step of the design process and every step of procurement and every activity on site. And usually the commercial team gets a 50-page PDF and they have to work out what it all means. So it's no surprise that commercial teams struggle to understand. It feels too detailed, it's too technical, too far removed from what they usually get involved with. But a commercial team needs to understand the program. You don't need to build it, you don't need to be able to run P6, but at the very least you need to understand it at a high level. As an example, on a program you would have start date, design, information you need to be issued by the client, when you're going to get access, how long is procurement going to be, how long is construction, let's say you're building a bridge, a tunnel and a main building. And also you've got time for handback. So you need to know what drives plan completion out of all these activities. How much terminal float do you have after plan completion and before contract completion? You also need to know what's on the critical path and also what's not on a critical path. The reason this is important is that on an NEC project, a big compensation event can happen at any time. And the contract tells you which program you need to use as a baseline. So you always need to know a summary of the program. You might have an event that delays your tunnel works by 2 weeks, and it's easy to assume that means a 2 weeks extension of time. But that might not be true. Often the event gets dropped into the baseline program, the button gets pressed, and there's no delay to plan completion. And no one in the commercial team knows why. If the affected works are not on a critical path on the baseline, there may not be a delay to the project. And that's exactly why you need to understand the program. You need to understand how everything relates to everything else. And it's not enough to just do this at the start of the job. You need to understand a summary of every monthly submission. How do procurement, construction and handback link together? Why have they changed since last month? What compensation events are in the program? And why is there a gap between plan completion and contract completion? If you don't understand how these pieces fit together, you can't control delay and you definitely can't control the commercial outcome. And this is the way you can start to understand. Programs aren't just a planning issue, they're also a commercial issue.